Received map reference 613, 694, all units. Between lanes 2 and 3. Takes us 120 miles an hour. Directly under the helicopter now. 230 southbound.
At the Cromwell Hospital in London, a transplant patient's body was chronically rejecting her recently replaced liver. A nationwide search located a suitable donor organ in Hull, and so began a life or death race against time to bring that organ to London. The Metropolitan Police were given the important task of completing the last vital stage in this journey. They had just 35 minutes to cover 29 miles across central London on a busy Friday afternoon. And that journey is the subject of this police camera action special. Filmed from an escorting patrol car, our story begins at Junction 7 on the M11 motorway outside London. The officers anxiously wait for the liver to arrive. The aircraft has been delayed in Hull due to fog. The pressure is on.
We'd been having a refreshment break, and we were suddenly told that the aircraft had taken off from Hull, was due at Stansted within a matter of minutes. So it was much a case of drop everything, leave the breakfast, and just go.
Alpha Lima 4, Alpha Lima 4.
The Essex car, as we were aware, had gone onto the runway at Stansted Airport, which was Junction 8, and they had to run alongside the aircraft to pick up the package.
We saw the Essex police car coming down the M11. We moved forward, took up position on the far side of the roundabout at the top of the slip road. They drew in behind us, and we transferred the organ from their car to our car.
It took me by surprise when I went to make the changeover from the Essex police car, and I realised that it was a very large picnic box. Most organ runs you expect to find stainless steel containers.
We were told that the liver had to be delivered to the hospital at 12:30 p.m. As we began to move off, I looked at the clock in the car and it was 11:56. I began to wonder then if we had enough time in which to carry out our run.
And time was indeed a crucial factor in the journey. If you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a clock showing the actual time ticking by. And on the left, we've added a countdown clock, showing how many minutes are remaining. Throughout the programme, this map will show you the patrol car's progress on its chosen route to get the liver to the hospital in the quickest time possible. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that on this part of the journey, the police are already up to speed. From this section on the M11 motorway, they have 27 miles to cover in just 33 minutes.
As soon as we hit the M11 southbound, we're confronted with roadworks. It was down to 2 lanes, and a lorry pulled out in front of us. And that's even with 2 police cars, headlights, blue lights, sirens, wailers, and still this lorry driver just stayed out there. I presume he didn't realise what was going on. And of course that caused a little bit of frustration because we had to average about 60 miles an hour from start to finish. And this should have been relatively the easy part of it, where we could actually gain on time. I didn't realise until this run took place that organs can last for X number of minutes depending on what that organ is. And I think a liver, I was told, could last for about 12 hours.
We were travelling at speeds of up to 120 miles an hour on the motorway travelling towards London. Not the kind of speed that we travel at every day, and certainly not to be recommended to anyone to try. But again, our training shows us that we can be capable of this. Only in exceptional circumstances would we use these high speeds, and this was a very exceptional circumstance.
As the motorway ends, the police enter the East End of London. There are now 26 minutes remaining and they have 15 miles still to cover. Although their route has been carefully planned, they have no idea what problems they can expect up ahead, or if they can possibly make it in time.
We knew where we had to finish up, and we planned a route which was acceptable to Scotland Yard, bearing in mind they knew all the traffic flow and the conditions. And then when we were sitting at Junction 7, we'd pick the route, and subject to us being told to change routes, that's the one we were going to stick at. I think Graham had an A to Z in front, and certainly Steve, who was with me, he had an A to Z. And then we came up to the first set of traffic lights, and that's where the first bit of congestion caught us. We wormed our way through there, but that was coming down to about 2 miles an hour, I think you'll see. And believe it or not, I was aware of another car coming through behind us. He obviously saw the gap, and when we went to Blakehall Road, there was a police officer there who took us over on the red light, and that's obviously what stopped the vehicle behind us. But I just thought to myself, you know, the cheek of it.
As the police get further into London, 13 miles away from the hospital, they move into more residential areas. The streets are becoming narrower and busier. It's not just other drivers that the police are worried about. The safety of pedestrians becomes a major concern.
We then went into the Green Man roundabout, and there was another patrol car there. And then it really got difficult when we went down High Road Leytonstone, because I took the wrong side of the road. And I think at stages there we were over 50 down there. I mean, if a pedestrian had come out between the traffic, I don't know that I could have avoided them. We just hoped that the noise would have been sufficient. I had the Wailer going, and I think Bill had the Yelper going, trying to inform the public that there were 2 police vehicles.
Throughout the journey, we did not give up hope at all, but the one thought in your mind all the time is someone's life is depending on what you are doing.
It's 12 minutes past 12. The police are still on the outskirts of London. They know they only have 18 minutes to travel the 8 miles to the hospital.
12:30 was the critical time, and we were told in no uncertain terms that if we weren't there by 12:30, we were to abort the run.
It was then they hit the traffic. Heavy traffic and a ticking clock still stand between the police and the hospital. They have 17 minutes to travel 8 miles.
It was a Friday and lunchtime. We had to travel through the East End of London, the City, the West End of London to reach the hospital.
To think you've got to go through London round about rush hour time or dinner time didn't exactly appeal to me, but there was no other way around it. So I knew there was plenty of help in front of us. I knew we had the majority of junctions covered because the new command complex at Scotland Yard had just opened up, and really I think this was a good test for it.
Because the route was planned, or we had already planned it with Scotland Yard, they were able to notify local stations and other traffic units that we needed assistance through traffic light junctions, various other junctions throughout the route, roundabouts and so on. Fortunately, they were able to be there. We had a great deal of assistance. The organisation worked, and a number of the junctions were manned, so that at least we could have a clear run through.
And I think if you look at the entire run, something like about 51 police officers took part in that.
The radio operator in the police car was in constant contact with Scotland Yard to inform them of their whereabouts and the traffic conditions. These updates are vital if the drivers want assistance on the way. And with 7 miles to travel in 16 minutes, they need all the help they can get. But will it be enough? In spite of blue flashing lights and wailing sirens, some motorists still seem unaware of the urgency of the situation. This time, a clear path through the traffic could be the difference between life and death.
Most drivers moved over to their near side whenever they saw the police car coming up behind them with the blue lights flashing. The exception was a red car, which you can see in the film, moving in front of my car. But if you look closely at it, you will see that the red car has got German number plates. The driver of that car was actually obeying the rules of the road for their own country.
Just 15 minutes before they're due at the hospital, and with 6 miles still to go, the patrol cars are joined by 2 solo police motorcyclists to try and help them get through the crowded city. Riding way up ahead, they're doing their best to warn traffic and pedestrians that an emergency escort is underway. Any time that can be saved at this stage of the journey could prove crucial.
We knew nothing at all about the recipient of the liver. We didn't know who the person was, male, female, adult or child. But you still have a responsibility to try and get the organ to the hospital as quickly as you can because someone's life depends on it. And that is the motivation behind you, as it were.
It's something I've never done before. It's a first for me, and it's not something that I relish because obviously you know that somebody is critical in a hospital and someone will of course have died, so there's no pleasure in it.
The patient had in fact already undergone 1 transplant operation, but her body was chronically rejecting the new liver. This second replacement liver was vital for her survival. Before the donor organ left the Hull hospital, a medical team had already assessed its suitability, and the operation was started on the assumption it would arrive on time. Without a new liver, there was no chance of survival. At speeds of over 50 miles an hour through the city, the police are making good progress, but there are still 5 miles to travel in just 13 minutes through London's busy West End. It doesn't look good.
As we drove along the embankment, we were told over the radio by our control room that they had been in touch with the hospital and told them to expect us in 10 minutes. I looked at my watch, checked the time and thought, oh dear.
The hospital are relying on the officers to arrive within an allotted time. The police have to tread a fine line between safety and speed, but they now know more than ever that someone's life is depending on them, and they may not make it in time.
When we were going along the embankment, we got called up to say that the hospital had obviously asked where we were, and an ETA of 10 minutes had been given. And I think Steve said to me, he said, they'll have started the operation now. He said, because when we get there, I think it's just a straight transplant in. And I was aware in my own mind that if we didn't get there, the person would die.
From the embankment, the police still have roughly 4 miles to cover, and with the average speed of London traffic down to just 10 miles an hour, time is running out.
They're going to send you the wrong side of the Mall, driver. On the opposite side of the Reading Station, driver.
From Northumberland Avenue, the patrol cars drive toward Trafalgar Square, where the police have cleared a route through to the Mall. This is the very heart of London and filled with tourists, but these drivers have no time to admire the sights.
When we went down the Mall, we had 2 City of London solo riders there who were brilliant, they were. In fact, one of them, I think, actually packed up motorcycling some days afterwards. He was so exhausted from that. It may not seem much to you if you look at it. His bike, in fact, packed up. In fact, you can see large plumes of smoke coming from the rear of it. And when we got to the wedding cake, we actually went off to the right. Unbeknown to me, it had been kept clear for us. It came as a bit of a surprise to me.
Just past Buckingham Palace, the police still face the daunting task of travelling 3 miles through the busy streets of Kensington before they can even think of reaching the hospital.
And then when we went up through Constitution Hill, we came up to Hyde Park Corner, and Steve said to me, he said, you can actually go straight over here. And lo and behold, we did go straight over. So again, that saved valuable time.
Straight through the gate, turn left.
We then got diverted. Our original plan was to go down through Knightsbridge, and we got diverted down to South Carriage Road because of traffic congestion. And along there, that's when I basically was follow the leader. I didn't know where we were going. I wasn't too familiar over there.
For these police officers based on the outskirts of London, these roads are unfamiliar. They rarely venture into the centre of London. However, a long straight road is a blessing, and with only 8 minutes to go, speeds of over 60 miles an hour just might get them to the hospital in time.
Doing a right turn here.
Obviously, if you're driving at high speeds and having to brake at those speeds, then your brake pads can get very hot. And there were a couple of occasions when we could smell a burning smell coming from the wheels.
Patrol cars are kept in tip-top condition to minimise the risk of breakdown. But in an emergency situation like this, where anything can happen, the backup car is there to take over.
As we turned into the Cromwell Road and the final approach to the hospital, we were very much on our own, especially when crossing over the junctions. It was very much a case of try and make as much progress as we could without inconveniencing other road users. But of course, again, trying to go against the clock.
The hospital is now less than a mile away, and the police have covered 1 mile every minute, a remarkable average speed of 60 miles an hour. But it's not over yet. This part of London is notorious for regular gridlocks. Although they're nearly there, there's one more problem to overcome.
I actually didn't know we were at the hospital. All I saw was Bill put a right-hand signal on, and I thought, oh, this doesn't seem a particularly main road. And then when we turned into, I don't know the name of the road, but alongside the hospital, because of traffic congestion, somebody sat there blocking the entrance to the hospital. And I think out of all of it, I think if I was going to say the wrong words, it would have been then to that motorist.
The police turn into the hospital at 12:25.
I looked at the time and realised that we'd made it with just 5 minutes to spare.
I really felt chuffed. I knew we'd done our bit, and now it was down to the surgeon and the hospital staff.
And it was all worthwhile. The patient survived. Alisa Halil has now completely recovered from her operation. It's transformed her life and her family's. She was quite unaware of the effort that had gone into getting her new liver to the hospital. I showed her the video for the first time.
I'm very surprised and very excited to see the first time what the people do for me.
The greatest thing that they gave you was another chance of life.
If these people don't do what he do, I don't know if I can't be to you and talk to you today.